The small town of Harborview in New England was bathed in May's sunshine. Olivia Watson gazed out the window of her workplace, the local bank, at the street stretching toward the ocean and let out a deep sigh. She had lived here with her daughter Madison for 6 years since her divorce. The decision to return to her hometown hadn't been easy, but there were both financial and emotional advantages to raising her daughter in the town where her mother Helen lived. At least, that's what she had thought. "Mom, I'm home." Olivia looked up from her stack of paperwork when she heard Madison's voice from the kitchen. Working on the living room sofa had become routine. Her 16-year-old daughter seemed to have come straight home from school. As usual, her backpack looked heavy on her shoulder. "Welcome home, how was it? How about that math test?" "Perfect score," Madison smiled shyly. "But it's really no big deal." Olivia stood up and hugged her daughter. "Nonsense, it's wonderful. I'm always so proud of you." Madison's modesty always tugged at her mother's heart. She was intelligent, serious, and put her all into everything she did. But her achievements were rarely properly acknowledged in the family, especially by her grandmother Helen and Aunt Diane. While making tea in the kitchen, Olivia glanced through the window at her mother's house. The old 2-story white colonial had once been a single large Watson family estate. After the divorce, Olivia had ended up living with her daughter in the guest house on the property. In exchange for her mother's assistance. "Did Grandma call?" Madison asked while spreading out her homework. "Yes, she invited us to dinner. But I declined. Let's spend the evening just the two of us." In reality, Helen had announced, Brittany won her cheerleading competition, so we're having a celebration dinner. Brittany, Olivia's sister Diane's daughter, was Helen's favorite grandchild. Helen constantly described the 15-year-old as vibrant, sociable, and above all, special. "Thank you," Madison's voice was tinged with relief. Occasionally, looking out from the bookshelf to the window, she could see the lights on in her grandmother's house. There, Diane and Brittany lived in another building on the same property, receiving Helen's adoration daily. The three seemed bonded by something stronger than blood ties. Diane had never held a stable job. Talented people don't live conventional lives, Helen would defend her daughter's lifestyle. Meanwhile, Olivia continued to work diligently as an ordinary bank employee. "Next Saturday is Grandma's birthday barbecue," Madison said quietly. "Do we have to go?" Olivia studied her daughter's anxious expression. This event celebrating Helen's birthday was an annual tradition, a major gathering where all the relatives came together. This year's was planned to be especially grand. "We have to go. We're family," Olivia answered gently. Madison sighed. "Brittany will be the star of the show, as usual." Olivia couldn't argue with that. No matter how excellent Madison's grades were or how devoted she was to volunteer work, in Helen's eyes she was just a serious, ordinary child. Meanwhile, Brittany's smallest successes were celebrated with great fanfare. "You are special, Maddie," Olivia placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Someday everyone else will see that too." Madison smiled, but there was skepticism in her eyes. "Right, someday." That night, they ate a simple dinner while watching a movie. Olivia occasionally glanced at her daughter's profile, marveling at her strength and patience. No matter what anyone said, Madison was special. It was just that the time to prove it hadn't yet come. Before bed, Olivia checked her smartphone and opened the family group chat. It was flooded with photos of Brittany's cheerleader selection and congratulatory messages from all relatives. She quietly put her phone down and looked out the window. Light still spilled from her mother's house. The laughter she could hear from a distance came from a celebration to which she and her daughter had not been invited. "Olivia, you should reconsider," Helen said as she elegantly sipped her tea. Her living room was filled with mementos and certificates from her 40 years as a teacher. Through the window, a well-maintained garden was visible, with Olivia and Madison's small guest house in the distance. "Mom, this is a huge opportunity," branch manager, Olivia explained enthusiastically. "The salary increase would help with Madison's college fund." "Isn't your current position enough?" Helen shrugged. "Why not stay where you are and enjoy a stable life? All this ambition." Olivia swallowed her words. In her mother's eyes, she would always be just the divorced daughter. No matter how excellent her performance at the bank, Helen's assessment wouldn't change. Speaking of which, have you heard about Diane's new venture? Helen's face suddenly lit up. Organic skincare products. Her sense is truly remarkable. Is that so? Olivia replied expressionlessly. She knew that last week, her mother had given Diane several $1,000s as startup capital. Despite all of Diane's previous adventures, handmade jewelry, interior design, online shop, ending in failure. Meanwhile, assistance for Madison's college fund had been under consideration for years. And Brittany. Olivia changed the subject. Congratulations on making the cheerleading selection. That girl is special. Helen's voice was filled with pride. Her coach says she might even win the state competition. A scholarship isn't out of the question. Olivia nodded silently. The more she spoke, the deeper the wound would become. Returning to the guest house, she found Madison quietly writing something at the kitchen table. College brochures were spread out in front of her. What are you doing? Olivia placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. Just. Madison hastily closed the brochures. Homework. Olivia sensed a secret in her daughter's eyes but didn't pursue it. Madison needed her own space, especially lately. Did you see Grandma? Madison asked. Yes. Same as always, Olivia said. That was enough. She didn't want to tell her daughter about the conversation with her mother, especially about the promotion. That evening, after Madison had gone to bed, Olivia found her notebook. Although she normally respected others' privacy, her eye caught an open page. It contained a draft of a college scholarship application. In response to the question, "State your goals for college and how you can contribute to the community," Madison had written in careful handwriting. I want to establish an educational support program for economically disadvantaged children. From my own experience, I understand how equal opportunities and recognition can change a life. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. Madison had been working on college scholarship applications without telling anyone. Olivia was speechless at her daughter's strength and determination. The next morning, Olivia's phone rang. The HR director of the bank's name appeared on the screen. She hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and answered. Olivia, I'd like to offer you the promotion. His voice sounded cheerful. Your performance and excellent customer service have been recognized. Thank you. Olivia couldn't contain her joy. After hanging up, she turned to tell Madison, but her daughter was already standing in the living room doorway. She was clutching an envelope in her hand. Mom, Madison's voice trembled. This? Olivia took the envelope. It was from the scholarship committee of a prestigious state university. May I open it? Madison nodded. When Olivia opened the envelope, inside was a letter. Dear Madison Watson, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected as a finalist for our Academic Excellence Scholarship. Maddie. That's wonderful. Olivia hugged her daughter. Why didn't you tell me? I thought everyone would laugh at me. Madison answered in a small voice. Especially Grandma and Brittany. Olivia's heart ached. Her daughter had achieved something so wonderful, yet couldn't happily share it with her family. You don't have to tell anyone. This is your success. I'm so proud of you, Olivia kissed her daughter's cheek. That evening, the family group chat began to buzz with notifications. Olivia picked up her smartphone and stared at the screen. Everyone, big news. Diane's message stood out prominently. Brittany has been selected for the regional cheerleading team. Only 15 girls in the entire state. The photo showed Brittany in a glamorous uniform, smiling proudly. Helen's reply followed immediately. Our genius. Congratulations. We'll celebrate at the barbecue. As the screen filled with congratulatory messages from relatives, Olivia looked at Madison. She was quietly looking at her smartphone but said nothing. Madison's news about being a scholarship finalist is wonderful too, Olivia sent to the group. After a few seconds of silence, Helen's reply came. That's nice. But Brittany's selection is a state-level achievement. Olivia took a deep breath. She knew there was no point in arguing. Looking at Madison, she saw her daughter put down her smartphone and silently head to her room. The night before the barbecue, Olivia noticed her daughter putting on a coat, preparing to go out. Where are you going? Just to Grandma's, Madison answered. I'll be right back. Seeing her daughter's determined expression, Olivia said nothing. Madison had something she wanted to resolve on her own. Arriving at Helen's house, Madison took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. Helen opened the door. Madison? This is unusual, she invited her granddaughter in. Is something wrong? Grandma, I want to talk about tomorrow's barbecue. Madison looked straight at Helen. I have a request. What is it? Please don't single out Brittany for special treatment in front of everyone tomorrow, Madison said quietly but firmly. I am working hard at things too. Helen's expression hardened. You're being too sensitive, Madison. Everyone in the family is loved equally. But Brittany has special talents, so of course we celebrate them, don't we? But I also. You're a serious, good girl, Helen patted Madison's shoulder. But you know, there's a difference between special talent and just working hard. Do you understand? Tears welled in Madison's eyes, but she held them back. I understand, she said quietly. Good night, Grandma. On her way home, a plan was forming in Madison's mind. Enough was enough. It was time for everything to change. The next day was blessed with a crystal-clear blue sky. In Helen's spacious backyard, party tents had been set up with several long rows of tables. Relatives and old friends gathered around Helen. The air was filled with the aroma of meat from the grill and the sound of laughter. Olivia and Madison arrived, having prepared more meticulously than usual. Olivia wore a navy dress, while Madison was in a simple but elegant blouse and skirt. Her blonde hair was carefully braided, making her look more mature than usual. Happy birthday, Mom, Olivia approached Helen with a smile. Madison and I picked this out. Inside the elegantly wrapped box was an antique silver photo frame, perfect for holding Helen's old photographs. Thank you, it's lovely, Helen glanced at it briefly before turning toward other guests. Oh, Richard. It's been a while. Come over here. Madison looked up at her mother, and Olivia shrugged slightly and smiled. It's okay, she whispered. In front of the grill at the corner of the yard, Helen's brother George was cooking meat. Around him were steaks, hamburgers, and specially prepared premium filet mignon. Dinner's almost ready. Helen's voice rang across the yard. Everyone take your seats. At the center of the long table sat a lavish birthday cake decorated with flowers and candles. Helen took the seat of honor, with Diane and Brittany to her right, along with close friends. Olivia and Madison were directed to seats relatively far at the end. How's the filet mignon coming? Helen asked George. Perfect, sis, he lifted a large piece of meat. Special meat for a special day. Helen smiled with satisfaction. Brittany, I had this prepared especially for you. Congratulations on making the cheerleading team. You'll need protein for the upcoming competitions, right? Brittany smiled smugly, receiving applause and cheers from around her. Thanks, Grandma. George began serving the food. Brittany's plate was loaded with a large, perfectly cooked piece of filet mignon, accompanied by grilled fresh vegetables and a baked potato. When it was Madison's turn, George hesitated for a moment. Confusion flashed across his face but quickly disappeared. He placed a single, blackened, split hot dog on Madison's plate with only plain white rice on the side. Silence spread across the table. Olivia's face reddened, and she began to stand up, but Helen's voice cut her off. You wouldn't appreciate the difference in taste anyway, would you? Helen said in a light tone. Weak laughter rippled around the table. Madison isn't interested in food. She's always got her nose in a book. Madison quietly stared at her plate. Only Olivia could sense the slight trembling of her small shoulders. That's right, Madison, Diane joined in. If you have a problem with it, why don't you pay for it yourself? Girls your age need to watch their calories anyway. Brittany laughed, bouncing her brown curls. That's right, Madison. I burn everything off with cheerleading, but you just sit around all day. The relatives looked uncomfortably at their plates or exchanged glances with one another. No one attempted to intervene. Olivia trembled with anger but waited for her daughter's reaction. The old Madison would have silently accepted the humiliation. But today's Madison was different. Thank you for the meal, she said quietly, picking up her fork. Olivia sighed with relief, grateful that her daughter was maintaining her composure. But the next moment, Madison set down her fork and slowly stood up. Actually, I have something I'd like to share with everyone. Madison's voice was more composed than usual. Everyone at the table turned their attention to her. Last week, I received a letter from New England State University. Not now, Madison, Helen interrupted. Today is my birthday. Madison hesitated for a moment but continued. I'm sorry, grandmother. But this is important. What? Did you get another good grade on a test? Brittany said mockingly. Wow, genius. Brittany, Diane made a show of admonishing her daughter, but there was a small smile at the corners of her mouth. You're all going to regret this. Are you ready? Madison's words froze the table. Helen's eyes widened, and Olivia was shocked into silence. She had never heard her daughter speak like this. Madison. Helen stood up. That's no way to speak. Madison quietly reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Are you going to tattle to Grandma? Brittany scoffed. How childish. No, Madison opened the envelope. This is my full scholarship acceptance letter from New England State University. I don't need anyone's help anymore. Silence spread again, this time heavier and more suffocating. What did you say? Helen's voice trembled. Full scholarship, Madison repeated matter-of-factly. I was selected based on my grades, community service activities, and essay evaluation. It covers all tuition and dormitory fees. You're joking, right? Diane said with disbelief. It's true, Olivia stood up and placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. Madison has been tutoring children after school as a volunteer for 2 years. Her efforts were recognized. Why didn't you tell us? Helen asked, her voice mixing anger and confusion. I did, Madison answered quietly. But no one listened. When Mom announced it in the group chat, everyone was too busy talking about Brittany's cheerleading. Around the table, relatives exchanged uneasy glances. George stared intently at Madison, his eyes showing something, respect, or perhaps guilt. So I wanted everyone to know today, Madison continued. I'm not an ordinary kid. I've been working hard all along, and now it's been recognized. So I won't accept this treatment anymore. She put down her fork and pushed away her plate. Thank you, Uncle. But I'm not hungry today. Madison quietly rose from her seat and began walking toward the edge of the yard. Olivia moved to follow her daughter, but an unexpected person acted first. Helen's brother George hurriedly left the grill and approached Madison. Madison, wait a moment, his voice had a gentleness to it. Congratulations, truly. That's wonderful. Madison stopped and turned around. I didn't know either, George said candidly. That you were working so hard. I'm proud of you. He paused and glanced back at the table. Shall we go back? Would you like to try again? I'll cook you a special steak this time. Madison smiled but shook her head. Thank you, Uncle George. But I'll pass today. I've said what I needed to say. As she began walking again, George nodded silently. Understanding colored his eyes. 3 days later, Olivia's phone rang. Helen's name appeared on the screen. She hesitated for a moment but took a deep breath and answered. Olivia glanced at her daughter. Madison was quietly doing her homework at the kitchen table. After hanging up, Madison looked up. Grandma? Yes. There's going to be a meeting tonight, Olivia tried to appear calm. She wants you to come too. Madison put down her pen and looked straight at her mother. I'll go, her voice contained a new confidence. In the evening, the two stood at Helen's front door. Diane opened it. Her expression was stern, and her eyes were red and swollen. Come in, she said curtly. In the living room, Helen sat in her favorite armchair, while Brittany stared at her smartphone from the edge of the sofa. George was there too, standing by the fireplace. Sit down, Helen commanded. Her voice was lower and colder than usual. As Olivia and Madison sat on the sofa, a heavy silence filled the room. Madison, Helen addressed her granddaughter. Your behavior the other day was unacceptable. You ruined my birthday. Madison silently stared back at her grandmother. Olivia placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder, showing support. Your education funding is cancelled, Helen declared. Insolent behavior requires punishment. What education funding? Olivia interjected. You've only made promises, you've never actually helped Madison. Helen's eyes widened. Be quiet, Olivia. I had set up an account for Madison's college. Really? Olivia asked sarcastically. How much is in it? That's... When Helen stumbled on her words, George cleared his throat. Sis, he said quietly. You should be honest. Helen glared at her brother, but George remained unmoved. I'm the family accountant, he explained to Olivia and Madison. Helen did indeed open an account in Madison's name. She made monthly deposits for the first 2 years. But... Olivia prompted. But 3 years ago, those funds were transferred to another account, George said, sadness mixing in his voice. An account in Brittany's name. Shock ran through the room. Even Brittany looked up from her smartphone, staring at her mother in surprise. Mom, is that true? Olivia's voice shook. Helen was speechless for a moment but quickly regained her dignity. It's my money. It's my decision. You diverted money you promised to Madison? Olivia stood up. How could you? Brittany has special talents. Helen raised her voice. She needed opportunities. Madison is. She swallowed her words. Ordinary. Madison said quietly. Is that your assessment of me? You never stood out from the moment you were born, Helen declared, her face contorted with anger. Since Olivia married that man, you've brought nothing but trouble to this family. Mom. Olivia said with a trembling voice. That's enough. Look, Diane joined in. Madison ended up getting a scholarship on her own, didn't she? Brittany needs our help. She has a bright future ahead of her. Madison slowly stood up. Her face was calm, but her eyes shone with determination. I'm going to college on a full scholarship, so I don't need your money anymore, she said to her grandmother. But I want a proper explanation for years of unfair treatment. Explanation. Helen laughed through her nose. You've always been second best, Madison. That's the reality. No, Olivia cut in. The reality is that Madison has carved her own path with extraordinary effort and talent. You just refuse to see it. What I want to know, Madison continued calmly, isn't why Brittany gets special treatment. I want to know why I'm belittled. I want to know the reason. The room fell silent. Helen and Diane closed their mouths, exchanging glances. Can't you answer? Madison pressed further. Or is there no reason? Just favoritism. George cleared his throat. Let me say something, he said quietly. Helen, Diane, I don't think you realize it, but your attitude is unhealthy. Families are supposed to support each other. You don't understand anything, Diane shot back. No, I do understand, came an unexpected voice. It was Brittany. She stood up and took a step toward Madison. I'm sorry, Madison. I didn't know. Brittany. Diane tried to pull her daughter back. Stop it, Mom. Brittany shook off her mother's hand. I knew you and Grandma were always mean to Madison. But taking money from me, that's wrong. It was for your sake. Helen said. You have a bright future. I might be able to accomplish things on my own too. Brittany cried out. Like Madison did. Silence fell over the living room. Surprisingly, Madison approached Brittany and took her hand. You do have talent, she said sincerely. There's no doubt about that. But I work hard too. Helen and Diane showed no signs of remorse, instead intensifying their resistance. However, the change in George and Brittany's attitudes was evident. Look, Helen, George said. What you've been doing is dividing the family. Is that what you want? The atmosphere in the room began to change. Years of resentment and secrets had surfaced, creating the possibility of new understanding. Olivia hugged Madison and smiled proudly. So, what now? Olivia challenged Helen. What do you want for this family? Helen remained seated in silence, but something appeared in her eyes, perhaps for the first time, uncertainty. It was a moment when the family's power dynamics completely changed. I don't want money or special treatment anymore, Madison said quietly. I just want to be respected. Her words resonated through the room, the echo lingering long after. 3 years later, in spring, the New England State University campus was enveloped in fresh greenery. Madison ran down the library steps and began walking toward the campus square. She carried herself with more confidence than before, thoroughly enjoying her college life. Majoring in business administration, Madison maintained excellent grades while serving as a mentor in the student support program. Her leadership and dedication were highly regarded by the faculty, and this spring she had received an internship offer from a prestigious consulting firm. Her smartphone vibrated, displaying a message from her mother. My promotion was officially confirmed today. Director. Madison smiled. Olivia's achievements at the bank had been recognized, and she was promoted to regional branch manager. Having overcome the struggles of post-divorce life, she was now reaching the peak of her career. Meanwhile, Diane's organic skincare business had, as expected, collapsed within a year. In the end, she had accumulated substantial debt and couldn't even maintain her lifestyle without Helen's support. Brittany had also caused problems in high school, and after being suspended several times, had given up on further education. They still relied completely on living in Helen's house, but their previously privileged attitude had subsided. As Madison sat on a bench and began typing a reply, another message arrived. It was from Brittany. I passed the GED test. Thank you, Maddie. Madison was genuinely happy. A few months after the confrontation at the barbecue, Brittany had contacted her asking for help with her studies. Madison had tutored her cousin online once a week, supporting her preparation for the high school equivalency test. Brittany was now considering enrolling in the local community college. That's great. Next is the college application. I'll check it this weekend, Madison replied. Walking across campus, she reflected on the events of 3 years ago. Since that day, her relationship with Helen had become complicated. For a long time, her grandmother continued to justify her actions, and the relationship with Olivia and Madison remained cold. However, 6 months ago, Helen suddenly fell ill. Hospitalized, she showed weakness for the first time, contacting Olivia and seeking reconciliation. Please, won't you come? Helen's voice sounded small over the phone. Madison visited the hospital with her mother. When they opened the door to the hospital room, what she saw was not the dignified grandmother of old, but an elderly, fragile woman. I was wrong, Helen said with tears in her eyes. I didn't treat you fairly. I'm sorry, Madison. The apology might not have been enough. But Madison had it in her heart to forgive. She took her grandmother's hand and said, "We can't change the past. What matters is what we do from now on." Since then, the family had slowly begun to rebuild their bonds. After being discharged, Helen had tried to reform her domineering attitude and treat her grandchildren equally. With George's support, everyone's opinions were now respected in family meetings. Madison's smartphone rang again. This time it was from Helen. Sunday lunch, will everyone come? I'll make lasagna, your favorite. Madison smiled. The relationship wasn't completely repaired, but at least her voice was now being heard. "I'll be there. Should I bring anything?" she replied. Madison looked up at the sky. The clouds floating in the blue sky seemed to tell her that past sufferings had now passed. She stood up and began walking to her next class. Life isn't perfect, and neither is family. But now she had a certainty that a true family isn't about blood ties, but about relationships where people respect each other. That courageous step she took at the barbecue 3 years ago had been the first step in changing herself and her entire family. Madison smiled as she contemplated the future ahead.